Alright, it's Lerald. So let's just start with a sales pitch here. Ritual is the best mechanic in the game if you set it up correctly, and it's pretty awful if you set it up wrong. The best way to make currency in Path of Exile 2, and Path of Exile 1, really, is through crafting. That's always been true in PoE 1, and it's finally true in PoE 2 thanks to patch 0.3 redesigning Omens and Essences. So what's the best way to farm all those crafting mats and become rich? Ritual and Essences, obviously. Now you should be crafting items for fun and profit, but even if you don't want to, Ritual is still a really strong currency generation mechanic on its own with the correct setup. And that's what this video is going to be about. It's about how to farm Ritual and make a bunch of currency directly, and then also if you want to add in Essences and actually craft gear to really send your wealth generation into overdrive, you can do that too. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Join our Discord as well, we're over 1,300 members and still growing. Also, we finally streamed enough on Twitch, and enough of you fine people tuned in while we were doing so to get my Twitch account up to affiliate. We are streaming both here and there occasionally, so check that out as well. Follow all of that stuff, links are in the description. You know the drill. Alright, so let's talk about Ritual and how the strategy works. You get tutorialized on Ritual in Act 1, so I don't really think I need to run through it, but let's just do the very quick version anyway. You kill monsters near the Ritual, their blood goes into the Ritual, you click the Ritual totem and kill them again, they give you tribute. Rares and magic monsters are worth more tribute, rares are obviously worth quite a lot more. There is an incentive to go for more pack size when you are trying to juice Ritual, because more monsters means more tribute, and more tribute means more rewards. Dragging monsters on a Ritual supposedly doesn't work, but it kind of seems like it does. It's a little janky as to whether it does or doesn't. I've tried testing it, and I've found that some things that spawned outside the Ritual and then moved into it did actually respawn with the Ritual. There's also some weird stuff where some unique monsters and some monsters like Delirium monsters will respawn with the Rituals, which is kind of cool. Rogue Exiles will respawn with Rituals, but they get totally re-randomized items every time they respawn, so you're basically just getting a new Rogue Exile with the same name. A lot of funky stuff happening with Ritual and monster respawns. The real interesting stuff happens, though, when it comes to deferring items. So the way that deferring items normally works is you spend, I think it's 10% of the cost of buying the item, plus a 5% tax, which is pretty brutal. And that allows you to basically put it on layaway. Is that a thing people do anymore? I don't know. But you are able to save it for later, and obviously, like I said, there's a bit of a tax. Now, depending on how you set up your Atlas passive tree, that tax can actually be completely removed, and then it becomes really easy to have just a wall of junk that you are saving for later. A big bunch of like little twigs, basically, that you're saving for later, and that's kind of how Ritual becomes a super consistent handful of chaos every map, and then occasionally it'll just slap you across the face with a big fist full of divines. So with all of that being said, let's talk a little bit about tablet modifiers for Ritual, because one of the things that's different about Ritual from every other mechanic in PoE 2 is that quantity isn't actually that important for Ritual. Obviously, if you get quantity on the prefixes of your tablets, that's good. The monsters in the map and around the Ritual will drop more stuff. Everybody likes more stuff. But having more quantity or having more rarity will not increase the quality of the stuff in the Ritual window. And most of the currency that you're getting out of doing Ritual kind of comes from the Ritual window. So quantity and rarity are not as absolutely mandatory in Ritual as they are in Breach or Expedition or Delhi or anything else. Instead, number of rare monsters, because that means you'll get more rare monsters around the Rituals. That's pretty good. Pack size is okay. It's kind of something we'll go after with our Atlas passive tree. I'll get to that in a second once I finished up here. But the main thing that you're really looking for kind of maximizing the value of your Rituals is the suffix mods on the Ritual tablets. So the way I try to set up is, and if I kind of just show off the Atlas area that I was playing around with in our last stream just a little while ago, here's the setup. I found an area with 3 overlapping towers. They don't really have a ton of maps in the area, but on this tower here, I did 2 Ritual tablets and an irradiated tablet. Down here, same thing. And then in the middle, because everything around it was irradiated, I just did 3 Ritual tablets, just trying to juice all the bonuses that I possibly could out of Ritual. And so what we're looking for on suffixes really is like a handful of different modifiers. This modifier, increased amount of tribute from the monsters that you sacrifice at the altars. Awesome. If you can stack this up several times, you're going to get a massively increased amount of ritual tribute. Obviously, your mileage is going to vary depending on the layout of the map and just how many monsters are around each ritual. But you can go from getting, like a couple thousand on a very unjuiced map to 5,000-6,000 tribute around a ritual altar. That'll let you just pull the trigger and just buy divines right out when they show up, or after a couple of deferrals, instead of having to spend several more maps deferring them over and over again. Rerolling favor at rituals also is a really good one. This reduced cost. If you have several of these stacked up, you can bring the cost down from 1,000 at a base, but 750 with the standard Atlas tree setup. You can bring that down into the like 240 range, so it's very, very cheap to jump through to the next couple of pages. You want to cycle through as many pages as you possibly can whenever you're doing ritual. The goal of ritual really is just to like flip through pages over and over again, see as many as you can, be looking for them divines, looking for mirrors, why not? But like good omens, that kind of thing. Obviously you want that, and making the cost of rerolling through all those pages be like 450 total tribute instead of 750 per page. It's going to help with that. If you have something good that's being preserved, you have a mirror that you're trying to defer your way to get, then this is a really good mod, reappearing sooner. Otherwise, it's actually pretty bad on its own. And then this mod right here, ritual altars allow rerolling favors an additional time. If you're able to layer this with several towers that have reduced tribute cost of rerolling favors, this is amazing. It allows you to get 4 pages per map, and then if you're able to make each of those page flips cost, like 200 ritual or something, then that's really, really valuable. I think just kind of a generic one when you're sort of in more of the like finding stuff setup is this one. Ritual favors have increased chance to be omens. Omens are kind of the more valuable thing on average that you're looking for. Obviously divines are good, but if you just get a lot of omens, you're going to wind up getting some good ones along the way. So this is a really good one to get in there as well. The ones that I would say are not that great are this one, rerolling. It has a chance to cost no tribute. It's just such a low chance. And then like reviving is magic or rare. This is just like, again, also lower chance, less valuable. And then like deferring costing less is really not really as valuable either. Okay, so that's the ritual tablets. Now to just kind of jump over to the other stuff that you're looking for on your like regular precursor tablets, the irradiated ones. You really just want quantity, and then any kind of suffixes are okay. If you're trying to do essences, I think I've used all of my quantity and essence tablets, but obviously, yeah, I have here. But like obviously, if you could find ones that have quantity as the prefix and then essence as the suffix, that's great to get. You can use overseer tablets instead of irradiated ones. They won't be quite as good. I like overlord tablets. I like bossing. It's actually kind of bad in terms of currency per hour, but I just think it's fun. Sometimes fun is worth more than currency. Good life lesson in there too, probably. All right, now let's take a look at the 2 passive trees. These are both going to be in the description, and this is kind of the, I think, more standard setup. This is for pack maxing. You're taking all of the pack size that you possibly can into the tree, including bountiful bloodlines and ever expanding hordes and all of this stuff. You're getting all the magic and rare monsters you can in the tree, every single bit of pack size that you can. Still getting some map mod effect as well from like unstable energies and grueling journey. And then, as always, you always want to take all of these bonuses that apply to tablet effect, enigmatic intensification, remnants of power, tablet effect, small passives, and precursor influence, so you get more tablets, so you can try and get ones with better rolls. So this is just simply, you don't want to do essences, you don't like essences, you think they're dumb or whatever, that's fine. You can do a setup like this. This will ensure the maximum number of monsters are in every map. It's good for farming XP, good for just farming like random drops, and pretty good for gold. Feels good if you're playing a build that uses like heralds, has some sort of like propagating clearing mechanic to it. So I like this setup. And then the alternative setup would be this. You're dropping all of these magic pack size nodes. You're dropping twin threats because that's just 1 extra rare. And usually this small passive is only worth about 1 or 2 extra rares as well. Not as important as coming over here and getting a bunch of these essence nodes. And then I did also take, and this is very optional, a couple of points into possessed stuff as well. I just kind of like spirits. I thought I didn't like them for a while, but having played with them more, I've kind of come around. I think I might be a fan. But you know, that's up to you. If you don't want to do anything with spirits, you can very easily drop that and maybe just like kind of fill out some more Waystone map mod effect or pack size here, something like that. You know, that can definitely work for you. But ultimately, I think that this setup works pretty well. This is the setup that I've been playing around with and played around with on our latest stream, and it worked pretty well. Got some, actually got a lot of raw divines, I think in the span of like a not really that locked in, maybe 2-hour stream. I think I found like 6 raw divines, so that felt pretty good, and some of them did come from these possessed monsters, so, you know, maybe there is something to that. So that's the standard tree. You can do kind of whatever you want with the bossing, but if you're doing essences, it makes sense to take the essence node along the way. And then there is the ritual passive tree, and this is where things are a little different from the way that we had recommended setting them up in the past. This is just something playing around with. I realized that Promise Devotion is much better than I had previously estimated. Deferring ritual favors at altars in your maps costs much less tribute. It completely zeroes out the tax that is associated with deferring good stuff, and it makes it just very, very, very cheap to defer items at your rituals, which means that you're able to just have a wall of stuff that you're deferring. It also makes the things that you defer reappear sooner, so you're deferring divines or omens of whittling or something like that, you know, fancy annul omens, and those things might be worth 3, 4, 5 divines each, and they're just showing up way more often. Other than that, you really still want all the same points, right? Ominous Portents is just really good. You get the ritual to spawn monsters faster, which is good because ritual is kind of slow, and you have way more omens in your maps, also good. Tempting Offers is good because it lets you get 3 pages per map instead of only 2, and it costs, instead of 1,000 per reroll, it costs 750, and it stacks with all of those modifiers from tablets, so that's really good as well. And then Spreading Darkness is just really like important to have. There was a bug with this in patch 0.2, but it has been fixed. I haven't had any maps that didn't have 4 ritual altars in them. I've had a couple of maps where the ritual altar didn't spawn because Abyss was overrunning it. That is a thing to bear in mind, you know, beware of that. But otherwise, if ritual is actually in the map, then it's going to have 4 altars, which means you're going to get the maximum amount of tribute, be able to defer as much stuff as possible. And then Promise Devotion, I really think, is like the thing that kind of makes it all be not just like functional, but actually be very, very good, is the fact that deferring is so cheap and the valuable pieces come back much quicker. You're not having to run 4 maps hoping that the divine that you're trying to defer reappears. It'll probably be on one of the next pages if it showed up on the first page of a map. All right, I just have 3 closing thoughts I want to kind of end on here, and these are in no particular order. First off, if you are doing essences in your strategy, which I recommend, be sure to corrupt all of the essences that you come across. In the span of like a 3-hour stream, we got 2 corrupted essences that were worth like 3.5 to 4 divines each. Streamer client maybe, but still you can't win if you don't play, so always corrupt the essences. Maybe that's a reason to use Overlord tablets for the guaranteed essence mob as well. Good jackpot. Thing number 2, don't defer tiny stacks of twigs. After playing around with this for a couple of days, the ones that are worth, you know, the ones that are 5 or 8 twigs at a time just really aren't worth deferring. Do defer the 30 plus stacks of twigs though. You know, I wasted a bunch of time in Tribute deferring the small ones. Not worth it. They're just not worth the clicks. Buy them on the last page if you have leftover Tribute though. Do that. And finally, always remember to buy stuff before you leave the map. I know it's simple and dumb, but sometimes you forget. That's leaving money on the table. It happened to me. It could happen to you too. And I guess the last little extra thing here is just simply that the Smothered ritual is kind of the only one that's really dangerous at all. It is very dangerous. I don't know that there's really an amount of Chaos Res other than maybe being Chaos Inoculation that makes it not be dangerous, but all the rest of the rituals are pretty easy. So, Smothered, good order for hash browns, terrible order for rituals. Other than that, they're all pretty much free. Alright, that's Ritual. It's a really great mechanic. It's so good for generating tons of currency, for generating tons of crafting omens. So it's kind of a combination of like a very simple steady currency generation mechanic, but then also a huge jackpot mechanic at the same time. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and become part of our community. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member, or come boost our Discord. Thanks for watching. Bye.